The final confrontation began when the Vakari Huntmaster, Vex Zalon, arrived on the planet with the last remnants of the alien military. The Huntmaster was a legendary figure who had never failed to break the spirit of any prey species. He came, personally because his reputation and the entire Vakari way of life depended on crushing the human rebellion. Jinho watched through stolen alien sensors as Vex Zalon's ship landed near the ruins of the former command center. The Huntmaster was ancient, even by Vakari standards, with scars covering his metallic skin from centuries of hunting the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. His red eyes burned with cold fury at what humans had done to his perfect hunting preserve. The alien leader immediately began broadcasting challenges to the human resistance, claiming that their success was only possible because they faced weak hunters and inexperienced soldiers. Now they would face the greatest predator their species had ever produced and learn. The true meaning of fear. Minji studied recordings of the Huntmaster's previous expeditions and discovered a disturbing pattern. He specialized in breaking the spirits of intelligent prey by targeting their leaders and destroying their hope. Once, a species lost faith in resistance. They became docile and easy to control. Yun recognized the psychological warfare for what it was and warned all human units not to accept individual challenges. The Huntmaster wanted to isolate human leaders and defeat them one by one to demoralize the entire resistance. This was exactly the kind of individual-focused thinking that had made Vakari vulnerable throughout the war. Nara intercepted communications showing that Vex Zalon had brought something new to the battle: experimental weapons designed specifically for fighting coordinated groups of intelligent opponents. The aliens had finally learned from their defeats and adapted their technology. The Huntmaster began his campaign by targeting human supply lines and communication networks using advanced stealth technology that was invisible to all their captured sensors. Suddenly, human forces found themselves cut off from each other and running low on equipment for the first time since the early days of the hunt. Humans began suffering serious casualties again. The Huntmaster's tactics were sophisticated and unpredictable, unlike anything they had faced before. Some groups panicked and made desperate decisions that led to disaster. Jinho realized they were facing an opponent who had learned from every human victory and adapted accordingly. The easy days of fighting overconfident aliens were over. Now they faced a predator who understood their methods and had developed countermeasures. Psychological pressure increased when the Huntmaster began capturing human prisoners and forcing them to broadcast surrender messages. Some colonists who had fought bravely for months suddenly appeared on alien broadcasts, begging their friends to give up the hopeless fight. Minji worked frantically to develop new weapons that could penetrate the Huntmaster's advanced defenses, but his equipment seemed immune to every countermeasure that had worked against other Vakari forces. The alien leader had come prepared for everything humans had learned. The turning point came when Nara discovered that the Huntmaster had a fatal flaw. Despite all his experience and preparation, he was still fundamentally incapable of understanding true cooperation. His tactics were based on defeating individuals and small groups, not an entire species working together. Hyun proposed the most dangerous plan in human military history. Every remaining resistance fighter on the planet would converge on the Huntmaster's position. Simultaneously, there would be no backup plan, no retreat, and no second chances. Either they would win completely or humanity would be destroyed. The plan required perfect coordination between thousands of fighters scattered across hundreds of kilometers without any electronic communication. The Huntmaster had proven he could intercept and disrupt all their technological systems. Instead, humans used methods their ancestors had developed long before any technology existed. Smoke signals, mirror flashes, animal calls, and human runners carried messages between distant groups. The coordination network was invisible to alien sensors because it used no technology at all. Jinho led the technical teams that would disable the Huntmaster's equipment, while Minji guided biological warfare units armed with the deadliest toxins they had developed. Hyun commanded the main assault force, and Nara coordinated intelligence from captured alien communications. The final battle began. At dawn, when 10,000 human fighters emerged from hiding places across a 50-kilometer front. The Huntmaster had never faced anything like this coordinated assault by an entire species united in common purpose. His advanced weapons cut down hundreds of humans in the first minutes, but there were always more coming from directions he had not anticipated. His individual fighting skills were useless against opponents who attacked in perfect waves that never gave him time to recover. The Huntmaster tried to retreat to his ship but found every escape route blocked by human forces who had predicted his movements. He was experiencing something no Vakari had ever faced before: the terror of being hunted by creatures working together. With single-minded determination, Jinho's personal confrontation with Vex Zalon came in the ruins of the original Vakari command center. The ancient alien still believed in his species' superiority, even as his forces crumbled around him. He could not understand how inferior prey had defeated the greatest hunters in the galaxy. The Huntmaster fought with skills developed over centuries of combat, but Jinho was not fighting alone. Human voices guided his movements, warning of attacks and suggesting tactics. The entire resistance was supporting him through their communication network. When Vex Zalon finally fell, it was not because any human was stronger or faster, but because he faced the concentrated intelligence and determination of an entire species that refused to accept defeat. The individual had been overwhelmed by the collective. The Huntmaster's death broke the last Vakari resistance on the planet. Remaining alien forces surrendered or fled in terror. Their legendary leader had been defeated by creatures he had considered nothing more than amusing prey. News of the victory spread instantly across the galaxy through the communication networks Nara had infiltrated, the sight of the great Huntmaster being carried away by human fighters destroyed the last vestiges of Vakari authority throughout their empire. Rebellions erupted on every world where aliens had enslaved other species. The hunting empire that had dominated the galaxy for millennia collapsed within days as fear turned into hope, and hope became action. The humans did not celebrate their victory with cruelty or revenge. Instead, they began the work of freeing other enslaved species and establishing peaceful contact with civilizations that had hidden from Vakari expansion for centuries. Minji led scientific expeditions to help other worlds recover from the damage caused by hunting expeditions. Her expertise became invaluable in healing ecosystems that had been damaged by alien interference. Hyun organized security forces to protect newly liberated worlds from any remaining Vakari military units that might seek revenge. His understanding of both human and alien tactics made him the perfect leader for these defensive operations. Nara established communication networks that connected liberated worlds and allowed different species to share knowledge and coordinate their efforts. The galaxy began working together in ways that had been impossible under Vakari domination. The surviving Vakari found themselves in the unfamiliar position of being hunted by their former prey. Many alien worlds requested protection from human forces because their own species could no longer defend them effectively. Some Vakari adapted to the new reality and began learning cooperation from the humans who had defeated them. These aliens discovered that working together was more satisfying than competing against each other for individual glory. The galaxy learned that humans were not to be underestimated, but also that they were generous in victory. The same species that had fought so fiercely for survival became dedicated to helping others achieve freedom and prosperity. In the end, the Great Hunt had taught both humans and aliens valuable lessons about the power of unity over individual strength. The hunters had become the hunted, but more importantly, the prey had become protectors of all life in the galaxy. The stars belonged to everyone now. not just to those who claimed the right to hunt, others for entertainment. The Vakari leadership made their decision in the 9th week of what had started as a simple hunting expedition. They could not allow word of their failure to spread across the galaxy, so they committed their actual military forces to crush the human resistance. Completely, 3 full battle fleets arrived at the planet carrying professional soldiers instead of sport hunters. Jinho watched from a hidden observation post as massive warships descended through the atmosphere, their dark hulls bristled with weapons designed for destroying cities, not hunting individual prey. The aliens were no longer treating this as entertainment, but as a serious military threat. The escalation terrified some humans who had grown confident fighting against hunting parties, but Hyun recognized that the Vakari had made a strategic mistake. By bringing in their military, they had admitted that humans were dangerous opponents. This psychological victory was worth more than any tactical advantage, Minji studied the new alien arrivals and noticed important differences from the hunters. The soldiers moved with disciplined precision, and their equipment was clearly designed for warfare rather than sport. However, they still showed the same fundamental weakness of poor cooperation between different units. The Vakari military doctrine was based on overwhelming individual superiority rather than coordinated group tactics. Each soldier was a formidable opponent, but they struggled to work together effectively. Against opponents who had mastered true teamwork, Nara intercepted communications between the military commanders and learned that many professional soldiers looked down on the hunting parties that had failed against human resistance. The military leaders believed their superior training and equipment would quickly resolve the embarrassing situation. This arrogance became another advantage for the humans because the Vakari military underestimated their opponents just as badly as the hunters. Had the soldiers expected to face primitive creatures with simple weapons, not organized fighters armed with modified alien technology, the first battles between human resistance groups and Vakari military units revealed the true extent of both sides' capabilities. The aliens had overwhelming firepower and advanced armor, but humans had learned to use the environment as their greatest weapon. Hyun coordinated attacks that used the planet's dangerous wildlife as allies. Certain jungle predators could be provoked into attacking anything that moved too quickly through their territory. The heavily armored Vakari soldiers became easy targets for creatures that had evolved to hunt in this environment. Minji discovered that the alien military equipment was designed for fighting on their home world and performed poorly in the jungle environment. Their advanced sensors were confused by the dense vegetation and multiple sun angles. Their vehicles got stuck in swampy areas where humans moved easily. Most importantly, the human resistance had learned to think like predators while the Vakari military still thought like conquerors. They expected direct confrontation and overwhelming force to win quickly, but found themselves fighting ghosts who struck without warning and disappeared instantly. The war escalated beyond anything either side had planned when humans began using Vakari technology to attack other alien holdings throughout the galaxy. Nara had learned to access their communication networks and coordinate with resistance movements on different worlds. News of human success inspired uprisings among other enslaved species who had suffered under Vakari hunting expeditions for centuries. The rebellion spread faster than the alien military could respond, creating chaos throughout their empire. Jinho led teams that sabotaged Vakari supply lines and communication centers on the planet. The aliens found their advanced equipment failing at critical moments because humans had learned to target the most vulnerable components. Their technological superiority meant nothing when the technology stopped working. The psychological warfare intensified as humans broadcast footage of successful attacks against Vakari military units to every world in the alien empire. The sight of professional soldiers retreating from prey species created shockwaves that reached the highest levels of government. Younger Vakari began questioning everything they had been taught about their species' superiority. If humans could defeat their finest warriors, then perhaps other prey species were also capable of resistance. The foundation of their entire civilization started cracking. Some alien military units began refusing orders to engage human forces directly after suffering heavy casualties in ambushes they could not predict or prevent. The proud Vakari military was experiencing something unknown in their history: defeat by supposedly inferior opponents. Hyun organized human forces into a proper army with specialized units for different types of warfare. Engineering battalions focused on sabotage and equipment. Capture science units developed new weapons and countermeasures. Medical corps treated casualties and studied alien biology for weaknesses. The coordination between these units created a fighting force that was more effective than the sum of its individual parts. Human commanders shared information freely and adapted their tactics based on lessons learned by other units. This flexibility gave them enormous advantages over rigid Vakari doctrine. The aliens tried to counter human tactics by bringing in elite units from their most successful military campaigns, but even these experienced soldiers struggled against opponents who refused to fight by conventional rules. Human guerrilla tactics turned the jungle into a nightmare for alien forces. Every tree could hide a sniper. Every stream could conceal an explosive device. Every animal call could be a signal for an ambush. The Vakari found themselves afraid of their own shadows. The breaking point came when humans launched a coordinated assault on the main Vakari command center using stolen alien aircraft and modified weapons. The attack required perfect timing between dozens of different units, but human communication and trust made it possible. Minji had developed chemical weapons using jungle plants that were harmless to humans but toxic to Vakari biology. The aliens found their advanced life support systems useless against biological warfare designed specifically for their species. The command center fell after a 6-hour battle that demonstrated human tactical superiority over their supposedly advanced enemies. Jinho personally led the final assault that captured the alien war plans and communication equipment. The victory had consequences far beyond the single planet because Nara immediately broadcast the battle footage to every world in the galaxy. The sight of humans storming a Vakari military stronghold inspired massive uprisings throughout the alien empire. Entire star systems declared independence from Vakari rule as other species realized they could fight back successfully. The hunting empire that had dominated the galaxy for centuries began collapsing as its foundation of fear crumbled. The Vakari government faced the greatest crisis in their species' history. Their military was defeated, their authority was questioned, and their entire way of life was threatened by creatures they had considered nothing more than entertainment. Some alien leaders called for negotiations, while others demanded the complete destruction of humanity, even if it required devastating their own empire. The debate paralyzed their government at the worst possible moment. Human forces consolidated their control over the planet and began preparing for whatever came next. They had evolved from helpless prey into effective warriors who could defeat any enemy through intelligence, determination, and cooperation. The final phase of the conflict was about to begin, and everyone knew it would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of the entire. The turning point came during the 7th week when Jinho led a daring raid on a Vakari forward base hidden deep in the jungle. The operation required coordination between 12 different human groups spread across 50 kilometers of dangerous terrain. Each group had a specific role in the complex plan that would either succeed completely or fail catastrophically. Hyun had spent days observing the base and identified the perfect target: a young Vakari hunter named Korith, who often patrolled. Alone, despite warnings from his superiors, the alien was arrogant and careless, believing that no prey would dare attack him directly. His overconfidence made him the ideal candidate for capture. The plan began at dawn when Minji's team created diversions on the eastern side of the base using their sound devices and chemical irritants that made Vakari sensors malfunction. At the same time, Nara intercepted alien communications and fed false information about human movements in the opposite direction. Korith took the bait and moved away from the base to investigate what he thought was a group of fleeing humans. Instead, he walked directly into a trap that Hyun had spent weeks preparing. The young alien found himself surrounded by 50 humans armed. With improvised weapons and captured alien technology, the capture was accomplished without killing anyone, but Korith was completely helpless against coordinated human tactics. His individual fighting skills were superior, but meaningless against opponents who worked together perfectly. He was restrained, using modified alien equipment turned against him. For the first time in Vakari history, one of their hunters had been captured alive by prey species. The psychological impact was enormous, not just on Korith, but on every alien monitoring the situation through their communication networks. Jinho led the interrogation with Minji translating and Nara recording everything. The frightened young alien initially refused to cooperate, but gradually began answering questions when he realized the humans intended to keep him alive. Human curiosity about their captors was something Korith had never encountered before. The information they extracted was revolutionary. Korith revealed details about Vakari society that explained their fundamental weaknesses. The aliens were completely individualistic, with no concept of genuine cooperation. Each hunter competed against all others for status and resources. Their military structure was based on personal achievement rather than unit effectiveness. Officers gained rank by personal hunting success, not by leading successful group operations. This explained why Vakari forces performed so poorly against organized human resistance. Most shocking was the revelation that the Vakari had been hunting other species for so long that their actual military capabilities had atrophied. They were superb individual fighters with advanced weapons, but had forgotten how to conduct real warfare against intelligent opponents. Korith admitted that younger Vakari were already questioning the wisdom of hunting humans. Many had requested transfers to easier prey worlds where the hunting was still entertaining without being dangerous. The human resistance was creating doubt throughout the alien hierarchy. The prisoner also revealed critical technical information about Vakari equipment and communication systems. He seemed almost relieved to share this knowledge, as if talking to the humans helped him process his own confusion about the situation. Nara used this intelligence to completely infiltrate the alien communication network. Within days, she was monitoring every conversation between hunting parties and feeding false information that caused chaos in their operations. Vakari hunters began receiving contradictory orders and conflicting intelligence reports. The humans launched their first coordinated offensive the day after Korith's capture. 12 separate attacks hit Vakari positions, simultaneously across a front that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. The aliens had never faced anything like this, organized assault. Each attack was carefully planned to exploit specific weaknesses. The humans had discovered groups armed with sonic weapons drove aliens from their positions, while others used chemical irritants to disable their sensors. Technical teams targeted communication equipment and supply lines. The Vakari response was chaotic and uncoordinated. Different hunting. Parties tried to respond independently without sharing information or resources. Some groups abandoned their positions entirely, while others called for reinforcements that were already engaged elsewhere. Jinho had predicted this reaction because humans understood something the aliens did not. True cooperation required trust and shared goals, while Vakari culture was built on competition and personal advancement. Their inability to work together became their greatest weakness. Within 48 hours, the human offensive had captured or destroyed dozens of alien vehicles and equipment caches. The Vakari found themselves retreating for the first time in their long history of hunting expeditions. The prey had become the predator's Minji, made another breakthrough discovery when examining captured alien technology. She found that Vakari weapons were designed with built-in limitations to prevent them from being used effectively against other Vakari. This safety feature could be disabled, allowing humans to use full-power alien weapons. The technical workshops immediately began modifying every captured weapon to remove these restrictions. Human fighters suddenly had access to military-grade alien technology without the built-in weaknesses. The firepower balance shifted dramatically in favor of the resistance. Hyun organized the enhanced human forces into proper military units with clear command structures and specific responsibilities. He applied lessons learned from human military history combined with new knowledge about Vakari weaknesses. The result was a fighting force, unlike anything the aliens had encountered. The psychological warfare intensified as humans began broadcasting their own messages using captured alien communication equipment. They sent recordings of Korith's interrogation to every Vakari unit, showing their fellow hunter cooperating with prey species. These broadcasts created panic among younger alien hunters who had never imagined such a situation was possible. Their cultural assumptions about prey behavior were being destroyed by direct evidence that everything they believed was wrong. More experienced Vakari hunters tried to maintain discipline, but even they were shaken by the rapid changes in the tactical situation. Some began advocating for withdrawal from the planet, while others demanded military reinforcements from their home worlds. The alien leadership faced a crisis they had never anticipated. A simple hunting expedition for entertainment had evolved into a military disaster that threatened their entire cultural foundation. If word spread that prey species could successfully resist, then other enslaved races might rebel. Nara intercepted communications revealing deep divisions within Vakari command structure. Some leaders wanted to escalate by bringing in their actual military forces, while others preferred to abandon the hunt and cover up the embarrassing failure. The debate gave humans precious time to consolidate their gains and prepare for whatever came next. Groups across the planet reported successful attacks on alien positions and growing stockpiles of captured equipment. Human morale had never been higher. Korith provided information about other worlds, where Vakari conducted hunting operations. The humans learned they were not the only species being used for entertainment, but they were the first to successfully fight back on such a large scale. This knowledge motivated the resistance fighters, even more because they realized their struggle had implications beyond just their own survival. Success could inspire rebellions throughout the alien empire and free countless other enslaved species. The transformation was complete by the 8th. Weak humans had evolved from helpless prey into effective guerrilla fighters who outmaneuvered their technologically superior enemies. The Vakari found themselves in the unfamiliar position of being hunted by creatures they had considered inferior, individual. Alien hunters began experiencing fear for the first time in their lives. They jumped at unexpected sounds, looked over their shoulders constantly, and made mistakes that would have been unthinkable weeks earlier. The psychological impact was devastating, so tables had truly turned and both sides knew it. The question now was whether the Vakari would escalate the conflict or admit defeat. Neither option was acceptable to their pride, but human determination had left them no other choices. The stage was set for a final confrontation that would determine not just the fate of the human colonists, but potentially the future of the entire Vakari hunting culture. After a month of surviving in the alien jungle, the remaining humans had learned to see their captors not as unstoppable predators, but as creatures with weaknesses that could be exploited. Jinho spent hours watching Vakari hunting parties through improvised telescopes made from salvaged equipment. He noticed they moved in predictable patterns and relied too heavily on their technology instead of natural instincts. The aliens seemed unable to function effectively when their devices stopped working. During thunderstorms, when electrical interference was high, the Vakari hunting parties would retreat to their ships and wait for clear weather. This gave humans precious time to move between safe zones and gather resources without being tracked. Minji made breakthrough discoveries about Vakari biology by studying shed skin and blood samples left behind after skirmishes. She learned that despite their superior physical abilities, the aliens had significant sensory limitations. Their eyes were adapted for their homeworld with different light spectrums, and they struggled to see clearly in the orange light of this planet's twin suns. Most importantly, she discovered that Vakari hearing was extremely sensitive to high frequency, sounds that humans could barely detect. Certain bird calls and insect noises that seemed normal to human ears were actually painful for the aliens to hear. This explained why they avoided certain areas of the jungle during specific times of day. Hyun used this information to develop new tactics for avoiding detection and driving away hunting parties. He taught groups of humans to use hollow logs and stretched animal skins to create noisemakers that produced sounds the Vakari found unbearable. The aliens would retreat from areas where these sounds were present, giving humans safe corridors for movement. Nara had been working tirelessly to decode more of the Vakari communication systems and learned disturbing information about their society. The aliens lived in a rigid hierarchy based on hunting success and individual achievement. They competed constantly against each other, and cooperation was seen as weakness. This cultural trait explained why Vakari hunting parties were so poorly coordinated compared to human group efforts. Each alien hunter wanted personal glory and refused to share information or tactics with others. Even when facing organized human resistance, the Vakari could not work together effectively. The translation device in Nara's ear had been modified through careful experimentation to intercept broader ranges of alien communications. She learned that many young Vakari were becoming frustrated with the unexpectedly difficult hunt. Some were requesting transfers, while others complained about the lack of easy targets. More experienced hunters dismissed these concerns, believing that human resistance would collapse eventually, like all previous prey species. They could not understand that humans were fundamentally different from other creatures they had hunted in the past. Jinho organized the survivors into specialized groups that worked together like parts of a machine. Engineering teams built better weapons and tools from salvaged alien technology science. Groups studied both the environment and their enemies. Medical teams treated injuries and developed ways to neutralize Vakari weapons. The coordination between these groups created advantages that individual humans could never achieve alone. When one group discovered something useful, the information spread quickly through the entire network. This sharing of knowledge accelerated human adaptation at a rate the Vakari had never encountered. The first major success came when Minja's team developed a way to disrupt Vakari cloaking devices using concentrated plant extracts mixed with certain minerals. The aliens relied on invisibility to stalk their prey, but the human mixture created a chemical reaction that made cloaked objects visible as shimmering outlines. This breakthrough changed everything because the Vakari had never faced prey that could see through their primary hunting tool. Suddenly, their most advanced technology became useless against opponents who had learned to counter it using nothing but jungle resources and scientific thinking. Hyun's military experience proved invaluable when teaching humans to set ambushes and coordinate attacks. He showed them how to use the terrain to their advantage and how to strike it, the most vulnerable parts of alien equipment. Rather than trying to match Vakari physical strength, humans learned to target their technological dependencies. The first successful capture of alien equipment happened during a carefully planned ambush. In a narrow canyon, 50 humans worked together to disable a Vakari flying vehicle using rocks launched from improvised catapults. The coordination required to hit a moving target was something no individual could accomplish alone. Nara immediately began studying the captured alien technology and made shocking discoveries. The Vakari equipment was incredibly advanced, but also extremely specialized for hunting helpless prey. It had almost no defensive capabilities because the aliens never expected to face organized resistance. Their weapons were designed to paralyze or kill individual targets, not to fight groups of opponents working together. Their sensors could track single creatures with amazing accuracy, but became confused when monitoring dozens of coordinated humans moving in complex patterns. Most surprising was the discovery that Vakari technology was largely automated. The aliens themselves had limited understanding of how their equipment worked. They had become dependent on machines to do most of their thinking during hunts. This explained why they performed so poorly when facing unexpected situations. The psychological impact of these discoveries spread quickly through the human survivor network. People who had lived in terror for weeks began to feel something they had almost forgotten: hope. The mighty Vakari were not invincible gods, but flawed creatures with serious weaknesses that could be exploited. Human morale improved dramatically as word spread about successful ambushes and captured equipment. Groups that had been hiding defensively began planning offensive operations. The shift from prey to predator mentality happened gradually, but the change was unmistakable. The Vakari leadership noticed the declining performance of their hunting teams, but initially blamed individual hunters for lack of skill. They increased pressure on the hunting parties, demanding better results and threatening punishment for continued failures. This pressure made the situation worse because stressed hunters made more mistakes and took greater risks trying to prove themselves. Young Vakari began walking into obvious traps or pursuing humans into dangerous areas where the local wildlife was hostile. Some alien hunters started developing what humans recognized as symptoms of stress and fear. These proud predators who had never experienced being hunted found themselves looking over their shoulders and jumping at unexpected sounds. Their confidence cracked as they realized their prey was watching and learning from every mistake. Minji observed behavioral changes in captured Vakari hunters that suggested they were psychologically unprepared for sustained resistance. Their entire culture was built around the assumption of superiority over other species. When that assumption proved false, many aliens seemed to experience something like existential crisis. The human resistance network grew stronger and more sophisticated with each passing. Weak communication systems improved, allowing coordination across vast distances. Supply lines developed to share resources between different groups. Medical knowledge advanced to treat both human injuries and to understand how to disable alien. Attackers Jinho established workshops where humans reverse-engineered captured Vakari technology and adapted it for their own use. The aliens had made their equipment user-friendly with simple controls that any intelligent being could operate. This backfired when humans learned to turn alien weapons against their former owners. The workshops produced improvised weapons that combined human creativity with alien technology. These hybrid tools were often more effective than pure Vakari equipment, because they were designed specifically to exploit known weaknesses in alien defenses. By the 6th week of the hunt, the power dynamic had shifted noticeably. The Vakari were still physically superior and had better technology, but humans had become unpredictable opponents who learned faster than any previous prey species. The hunters were discovering that intelligence and determination could overcome raw physical advantage. The stage was set for the conflict to escalate beyond anything the Vakari had experienced in their long history of hunting expeditions. The aliens were about to learn that choosing humanity as prey had been their greatest mistake. The 3 days passed too quickly for the scattered humans across the alien jungle planet. Groups of colonists had found each other and formed small camps, but many people were still alone and frightened when the hunting began. Jinho had managed to gather almost 200 survivors in a valley near a freshwater river. But he knew thousands more were scattered across the vast wilderness. When the 4th day arrived, the sky filled with strange sounds like metal birds calling to each other. The Vakari had begun their hunt, and the humans could hear alien vehicles moving through the air above the thick tree canopy. Jinho watched from behind a large boulder as sleek silver craft glided silently between the branches, their surfaces reflected, the jungle like mirrors making them hard to see clearly. The first attacks came without warning. Screams echoed through the forest as energy nets fell from the sky, trapping groups of humans who had been walking in open areas. The nets crackled with blue electricity that made people collapse instantly once they were caught. Flying drones no bigger than birds zipped through the trees, firing tiny darts that caused paralysis within seconds. Minji saw it happen to a family of colonists who had been gathering fruit near her hiding spot. The parents fell first. Then their two young children were caught in glowing ropes that appeared from nowhere. She wanted to help, but Hayun grabbed her arm and pulled her deeper into the thick undergrowth. He had learned in the military that rushing toward danger without a plan only created more casualties. The Vakari themselves finally appeared on the second day of hunting, and the humans got their first close look at their captors. They were tall, creatures nearly 3 meters in height with sleek bodies covered in what looked like living metal. Their skin shifted colors from silver to black, depending on the light, and their red eyes glowed like hot coals in the shadows. Their faces were long and narrow with sharp features that reminded Jinho of predatory birds. Their hands ended in clawed fingers that could extend like knives when needed. They moved through the jungle with fluid grace, making no sound, even when stepping on dry leaves. Their technology seemed to be part of their bodies, with weapons and tools appearing from hidden compartments in their arms and chests. Nara had been monitoring their communications through the translation device and learned disturbing details about Vakari hunting methods. They treated the entire operation like entertainment, broadcasting the best moments to audiences back on their home worlds. Different hunters competed for the most creative captures or kills, while others specialized in psychological torture. The aliens seemed to enjoy fear more than violence itself. They would stalk individual humans for hours, letting their prey know they were being watched but not attacking immediately. They used sound recordings of human screams to flush people out of hiding places and projected false images to confuse their victims. During the first week, over 3,000 humans disappeared. The lucky ones died quickly from energy weapons that vaporized their targets instantly. Others were captured alive and taken to unknown locations for purposes the survivors did not want to imagine. The Vakari seemed to have unlimited resources, with new hunting parties arriving daily to replace those that grew bored. But something unexpected began happening that the aliens had not planned for. Instead of breaking down under pressure, the remaining humans started adapting faster than any previous prey species. The Vakari had hunted Jinho, watched their tactics carefully, and noticed patterns in how they moved and attacked. They always approached from downwind and preferred to strike during the early morning hours when most creatures were sleepy. Minji used her scientific training to study the jungle environment and find advantages the aliens might not know about. She discovered that certain plants released toxic pollen when disturbed, and some of the local animals were naturally aggressive toward anything that moved too quickly. The jungle itself could become a weapon if humans learned to use it properly. Hyun began teaching guerrilla warfare tactics to anyone who would listen. He showed people how to move silently through thick vegetation, how to set simple traps using jungle materials, and most importantly, how to think like predators. Instead of prey, his military experience became invaluable as more humans learned to fight instead of just hiding. Nara worked on understanding Vakari communication patterns and technology. She realized their translation devices could work both ways, allowing humans to intercept some alien conversations. The Vakari were careless with their communications because they had never faced prey intelligent enough to listen. In small groups of humans began coordinating their movements, sharing information about alien patrol routes and safe areas. The Vakari found this cooperation amusing, at first thinking it would make the hunt more interesting. They had seen other species try to work together, but fear and desperation always destroyed unity quickly. However, human cooperation grew stronger under pressure instead of weaker. Families shared food with strangers, and people risked their lives to help others escape from hunting parties. The sense of shared humanity became more powerful than individual fear, creating bonds the aliens could not understand. By the end of the second week, the casualty rate among humans dropped significantly. The Vakari noticed fewer easy captures and had to work harder to find their prey. Some of the younger alien hunters began making complaints about the difficulty increase. They had expected simple, frightened creatures that would provide quick entertainment. Jinho organized the first successful counterattack when his group ambushed a Vakari hunter who had been stalking them for days. They used rocks and sharpened sticks to disable the alien's equipment, then drove the creature away without killing it. The message was clear that humans were no longer helpless victims. The attack sent shockwaves through the Vakari hunting community. They had never encountered prey that fought back effectively. Most species either ran in terror or died fighting uselessly with natural weapons. Humans were doing something different by combining intelligence with determination, in ways the aliens had not expected. Other human groups began launching similar attacks, always focusing on damaging equipment rather than trying to kill the physically superior aliens. The strategy worked because Vakari technology was designed for hunting, not for warfare against intelligent opponents. Their weapons and sensors were powerful, but not well protected against coordinated assaults. The psychological impact on the Vakari was even more significant than the physical damage. Many alien hunters had joined the expedition expecting easy entertainment, but found themselves facing opponents who learned from every encounter. Some hunters requested transfers to easier prey worlds, while others demanded better equipment and support. Minji made the most important discovery during a daring reconnaissance mission to observe a crashed Vakari vehicle. She realized their technology relied heavily on specific energy frequencies that could be disrupted by certain mineral deposits found. Throughout the jungle, the aliens' powerful sensors became useless near these natural interference sources. This information spread quickly through the human communication network that Nara had been developing. Groups began moving toward areas rich in these protective minerals and building camps that were invisible to alien detection systems. The Vakari found themselves hunting ghosts as their prey seemed to vanish from their most advanced sensors. The change in dynamics frustrated the Vakari, leadership who had promised their audiences spectacular entertainment. Instead, they were broadcasting footage of empty jungle and confused hunters searching for targets that stayed one step ahead. The ratings for their hunting shows began dropping. As viewers grew bored with the lack of action, some of the more experienced Vakari hunters began to respect their human prey in ways they had never expected. They recognized intelligence and adaptability that reminded them of their own species in ancient times before technology made hunting too easy. This respect worried the leadership because hunters who respected their prey might start questioning the entire system. By the third week, the hunt had transformed from simple entertainment into something resembling actual warfare. The humans had learned to use every advantage their environment provided, while the Vakari found their traditional methods becoming less effective against increasingly organized opposition. The stage was set for an escalation that neither side had anticipated when the hunting began. The colony ship moved slowly through deep space, carrying 50,000 humans to their new home planet, New Eden. The journey had been peaceful for 8 months, and most people had settled into their daily routines. Jinho worked in the engineering section, fixing problems with the ship's systems. He was 32 years old, with strong hands and a sharp mind for solving technical problems. His black hair was always messy from crawling through maintenance tunnels, but his dark eyes never missed. A detail Minji spent her days in the science lab studying samples from their destination planet. She was 28 with long black hair tied back in a ponytail. Her gentle face hid a brilliant mind that could understand the most complex biological systems. She had joined this mission to study alien life forms and help establish safe farming on the New World. Hyun taught survival classes to colonists in the ship's training areas. He was a former soldier who knew how to live in dangerous places. His weathered face showed scars from old battles, but his voice was always calm when teaching others how to stay alive. He believed every person should know basic survival skills, even on a peaceful colony. Ship Nara worked in the communications center, keeping contact with Earth and monitoring space around their ship. She was 25 with bright, intelligent eyes that could spot problems in data streams before anyone else. Her fingers moved quickly across control panels as she managed dozens of communication channels. The four of them had become friends during the long journey, often eating meals together and sharing stories about their hopes for the new planet. None of them expected their peaceful journey to become a nightmare. It started. With strange readings on the long-range sensors, Nara noticed unusual energy signatures approaching their ship from multiple directions. She called her supervisor, but before anyone could react, the entire ship shook violently. Emergency alarms began. Screaming throughout every section, Jinho was thrown against a wall in the engine room as the lights flickered and died. The emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. He could hear people shouting in panic through the corridors. His training told him to check the main systems, but when he reached for his tools, a strange blue light filled the room. The light made him feel heavy and tired, like he was sinking into thick mud. His arms and legs stopped responding to his commands. He tried to call out, but no sound came from his mouth. The blue light grew brighter until he could not see anything else. Then everything went black. Minji was examining plant samples when the attack began. Her microscope slid off the table as the ship lurched sideways. She grabbed the edge of her desk to steady herself, but the strange blue light appeared in her lab too. The light made her thoughts fuzzy and her body felt like it was made of stone. She watched helplessly as her equipment floated in the air around her before consciousness faded away. Hyun had been teaching a group of colonists basic first aid when the emergency began. His military instincts kicked in immediately. He started organizing people to move to safe areas, but the blue light stopped him mid-sentence. His students looked at him with confused faces as the light made everyone freeze in place like statues. He tried to fight against the strange energy, but his body would not obey. His mind, Nara saw everything happening on her screens before the light reached the communications center. Massive alien ships had surrounded their colony vessel. She tried to send a distress signal to Earth, but her hands would not move. The alien ships were unlike anything in human records. They looked like giant black triangles covered in pulsing lights. She managed to hit one emergency button before the blue energy made her collapse. When the humans began to wake up, they found themselves in a completely different place. The colony ship was gone, and they were lying on soft grass under an orange sky. Two suns hung overhead, casting strange shadows through thick jungle trees. The air was warm and humid with unfamiliar smells of alien plants and flowers. Jinho sat up slowly, feeling dizzy and confused. His engineering uniform was gone, replaced by simple brown clothes and basic boots. Around him, other colonists were waking up looking just as lost and frightened. He could see the jungle stretched in every direction with no sign of any buildings or technology. Minji found herself near a small stream with crystal-clear water flowing over smooth stones. Her scientist mind immediately began cataloging the strange plants around her, but fear made it hard. To think clearly, she recognized some of the other colonists nearby, but many faces were missing. Hyun woke up on a hill overlooking the jungle. His soldier training helped him stay calm while others panicked. He quickly counted the people he could see and realized they had been scattered across a large area. Only a few hundred humans were visible, but he knew there should be thousands more somewhere in this alien wilderness. Nara discovered a small metal device attached to her ear that had not been there before. When she touched it, voices began speaking in her head. The words were not human, but somehow she understood their meaning perfectly. The device was translating alien speech directly into her thoughts. A new voice spoke through, all the translation devices at once, making every human stop and listen. The voice was cold and amused, like someone enjoying a private joke. It belonged to creatures that called themselves the Vakari. The Vakari explained that humans had been brought to this planet for a very special purpose. They had been searching the galaxy for the perfect prey species for their greatest form of entertainment. They had tried many different alien races over the centuries, but most were either too weak to provide sport or too dangerous to hunt safely. Humans were ideal because they were intelligent enough to make the hunt interesting, but had no natural weapons or advanced technology. The Vakari had studied human behavior for years through hidden observation. Posts. They knew humans could think and plan, but believed they were too soft and peaceful to fight back effectively. The alien voice continued explaining the rules of their twisted game. Each human had been given basic survival gear, including simple tools, food, and water for 3 days. After that time, the hunt would begin. The Vakari would use their advanced technology and superior physical abilities to track down every human on the planet. Some humans would be killed quickly for sport, while others would be captured alive for different kinds of entertainment. The Vakari found terror and desperation amusing and wanted to see how long humans could survive before giving up hope. The voice warned that trying to fight back was useless because the Vakari had been hunting intelligent species for thousands of years. They had weapons that could paralyze from great distances, flying machines that could track any movement, and sensors that could detect the smallest sound or smell as the alien voice faded away. The humans looked around at each other with growing horror. They had been kidnapped from their peaceful journey and dumped on an alien world to be hunted like animals for the amusement of creatures they had never met. But something the Vakari had not expected began to happen immediately. Instead of running away in panic, the humans started moving toward each other. Jinho called out to gather people together. Minji began examining the plants to see which ones might be useful. Hyun started teaching basic camouflage and hiding techniques. Nara worked to understand more about the translation devices. The Vakari, watching from their hidden positions, found this behavior curious, but not threatening. They had seen some cooperation from other species before, but it never lasted long once the real hunting began. They were confident that human unity would crumble quickly under pressure, just like all the others. What they did not understand was that humans had spent their entire evolution learning to work together against impossible odds. The Vakari had made a terrible mistake in choosing humanity as their prey.